Let's start now. The far side of the moon. There is a side of the moon that humanity never sees from Earth, the far side. This phenomenon occurs due to tidal locking, a gravitational interaction that synchronizes the moon's rotation with its orbit around Earth. While this explains why we only ever see one face, it doesn't explain everything about what lies beyond our view, or why it feels so fundamentally different. The far side is dramatically different in appearance. It is covered in dense craters, with a rough and chaotic landscape that contrasts sharply with the smoother plains of the near side. The terrain looks older, more scarred, almost untouched by the processes that shaped the visible side, as if time itself left a deeper mark there. Scientists believe this difference may be related to variations in crust thickness, ancient impacts, or uneven heat distribution in the moon's early history. However, despite decades of research, no single theory fully explains why the two sides are so different, leaving room for continued investigation and unanswered questions. For astronauts aboard the Artemis II mission, the far side represents more than just a scientific curiosity. It represents true isolation, the kind that cannot be fully simulated on Earth. As the spacecraft moves behind the moon, communication with Earth is completely lost. During these periods, astronauts are entirely on their own, relying solely on onboard systems, protocols, and their training. There are no real-time instructions, no immediate support, only silence, and trust in technology and in each other. Even more intriguing is how little we truly know about this region. While orbiters have mapped it, human presence has never reached it directly. It remains one of the least experienced environments in human space exploration. A place that exists, but has never been truly felt, never directly experienced by human senses. And that unknown carries a quiet, unsettling weight that lingers longer than expected, especially when there is no one to call. A sound that should not exist. During the Apollo 10 mission, in 1969, astronauts encountered something that continues to intrigue scientists and the public alike, a moment that still raises questions decades later. As they traveled over the far side of the moon, completely cut off from communication with Earth, they began hearing a strange sound through their communication systems, at a time when silence was expected to be absolute. It was described as a high-pitched whistling, almost like distant music. Something rhythmic, almost artificial, something that didn't quite belong, as if it had a pattern, not just random noise. At first, the astronauts didn't fully understand what they were experiencing. The sound persisted for several minutes, creating a moment of uncertainty in an already isolated environment, where every unexpected detail matters and every anomaly demands attention. What made this event particularly unsettling is a basic principle of physics. In the vacuum of space, sound does not travel the way it does on Earth. Without air, there is no medium to carry sound waves, no way for sound to exist in the form we understand. So what caused it? The most widely accepted explanation is radio interference, signals from different systems overlapping and producing an audible tone within the communication equipment. But even with this explanation, the experience remains psychologically powerful and difficult to dismiss entirely. Because understanding something logically does not always remove the emotional impact of experiencing it in real time, especially in an environment where uncertainty already exists and isolation amplifies every sensation. Imagine being surrounded by silence, absolute silence, and then suddenly hearing something that shouldn't exist, something that breaks the expected rules and interrupts that silence without warning. Moments like this highlight how unfamiliar space can feel, even to highly trained professionals, and how quickly certainty can turn into doubt. And sometimes, the most unsettling part is not the mystery itself, but how it makes you feel in the moment, uncertain, exposed, alone, and quietly questioning what is real and what isn't. Holes into the unknown. Beneath the moon's surface lies a hidden landscape that we are only beginning to understand, a world that exists completely out of sight, silent, sealed, and untouched for billions of years. Across various regions, scientists have identified deep pits, vertical openings that lead into massive underground tunnels known as lava tubes. These structures formed billions of years ago during periods of intense volcanic activity. As molten lava flowed beneath the surface, it created channels. When the outer layer cooled and solidified, the lava inside eventually drained away, leaving behind vast hollow spaces, empty corridors carved by ancient forces. Some of these pits are incredibly deep, exceeding 100 meters, and wide enough to accommodate entire structures or even future human bases. From orbit, they appear as dark voids, sharply contrasting with the bright lunar terrain, like openings into something deeper, something concealed beneath the surface. These formations are considered promising locations for future human habitation, as they offer natural protection from radiation, micrometeorites, and extreme temperature fluctuations. But despite their potential, they remain largely unexplored and largely unknown, holding more questions than answers. No human has ever descended into these lunar caves. We don't know how stable they are, how far they extend, or what conditions exist inside them. Some could stretch for kilometers, forming vast underground networks hidden beneath the surface, completely isolated from the world above and from everything familiar. For astronauts, exploring these areas would require advanced robotics, new navigation systems, and a willingness to enter environments completely cut off from sunlight and from direct communication with the outside. There is something deeply unsettling about standing at the edge of one of these pits, looking into darkness where light cannot reach, and where no human has ever been, and where nothing reflects back, not even a sense of depth. It represents one of the moon's greatest unknowns, a doorway into a hidden world beneath the surface. And like all unknowns, it invites both curiosity and caution in equal measure, demanding respect from anyone who dares to explore it. The dust that follows you. Lunar dust is one of the most underestimated and persistent hazards on the moon. At first glance, it appears harmless, a fine gray powder covering the surface, almost soft and uniform. But under magnification, it reveals a much more aggressive nature. Each particle is sharp, jagged, and irregular, formed in an environment without wind or water to smooth its edges. Because of this, lunar dust is highly abrasive. It can scratch surfaces, wear down materials, and degrade seals and joints over time, often faster than expected. Even more problematic is its ability to cling to everything. Electrostatic forces cause it to stick to suits, tools, equipment, and spacecraft surfaces almost permanently, resisting removal even with effort. During the Apollo missions, astronauts struggled constantly with lunar dust. It coated their suits, reduced visibility on helmet visors, and infiltrated the interior of their spacecraft. Once inside, it became a persistent contaminant that was extremely difficult to remove, spreading into areas it wasn't supposed to reach. Astronauts reported eye irritation, throat discomfort, and a distinct smell similar to burnt gunpowder, a detail that many described as surprisingly strong and memorable. For future missions like Artemis II, managing lunar dust is a critical challenge. Engineers are developing new coatings, materials, and airlock systems to minimize its impact, but completely eliminating it remains nearly impossible. The most unsettling aspect is its persistence. Once lunar dust enters an environment, it doesn't simply disappear. It lingers, accumulates, and continues to affect everything around it, often unnoticed at first. Quietly, consistently, and over time, it becomes a serious and unavoidable threat, one that never truly leaves. Gravity that deceives gravity on the moon is weaker than on Earth, but it is far from uniform or predictable. Beneath the surface lie regions known as mass concentrations, or maskins, where dense materials create localized gravitational anomalies. These anomalies were first discovered during early lunar missions, when spacecraft experienced unexpected changes in their orbits, subtle shifts that couldn't be explained by standard calculations alone. Instead of following smooth, predictable paths, their trajectories were slightly pulled, nudged, and altered by invisible variations in gravitational pull hidden beneath the surface. Maskins are often associated with large impact basins filled with dense material, possibly remnants of ancient asteroid collisions. These regions exert slightly stronger gravitational forces compared to surrounding areas. While the differences may seem small, their long-term effects can be significant. For spacecraft, even minor deviations can accumulate over time, leading to orbital instability. Continuous adjustments are required just to maintain a stable path. For astronauts and mission planners, this introduces an additional layer of complexity, one that cannot be seen, only calculated and anticipated. Navigation systems must constantly account for forces that are invisible and ever-present. The unsettling aspect is that these variations exist beneath the surface, hidden from direct observation. They challenge one of our most basic assumptions, that gravity behaves consistently and predictably. On the Moon, even this fundamental force can shift depending on where you are. And in an environment where precision is everything, even the smallest unpredictability can become a serious risk. It's a quiet reminder that space is not just vast, it is layered with hidden forces we are still learning to understand. Invisible attacks. The Moon is constantly exposed to impacts from space debris. Without an atmosphere, there is no protection against incoming particles. Micrometeorites, tiny fragments of rock and metal, strike the lunar surface at extremely high speeds. These particles can travel at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, turning even the smallest grain into a high-energy projectile capable of causing real damage. While many of these impacts are too small to see, their cumulative effects are far from insignificant. Over time, they erode surfaces, weaken materials, and pose a constant threat to equipment and astronauts. On Earth, our atmosphere acts as a protective shield, burning up most incoming debris before it ever reaches the ground. On the Moon, that shield simply doesn't exist. For astronauts, this creates an environment where danger can appear without warning. There are no sounds to signal an incoming object, no vibrations to hint at its approach, just sudden impact, instant and silent. Protective shielding and advanced materials can reduce the risk, but they cannot eliminate it entirely. Every surface, every structure, every suit must be designed with this constant exposure in mind. And beyond the physical danger, there is also a psychological effect. Knowing that unseen threats are always present, that something could strike at any moment without warning. In space, not all dangers are visible. Some of the most serious ones arrive silently and without a trace. Extreme temperatures. The Moon is an environment defined by extreme temperature variations. Without an atmosphere to regulate or distribute heat, the surface experiences dramatic and unforgiving shifts between day and night. During the lunar day, temperatures can exceed 100 degrees Celsius, creating intense heat capable of stressing equipment and limiting human activity. Surfaces exposed to sunlight can become dangerously hot within a short period of time. At night, however, temperatures can plunge below minus 170 degrees Celsius, creating conditions cold enough to freeze materials and cause them to become brittle. These extremes are not gradual, they are harsh and absolute. This constant cycle of heating and freezing places enormous stress on materials and systems. Structures expand and contract repeatedly, leading to fatigue, microfractures, and eventual failure if not carefully engineered. For astronauts, maintaining a stable internal environment is not just important, It is essential for survival. Spacesuits and spacecraft rely on advanced thermal control systems designed to regulate temperature and protect against external extremes. Even minor malfunctions in these systems can escalate quickly into life-threatening situations. Electronics may fail, batteries may drain faster, and critical systems may degrade over time under constant stress. The challenge is not just surviving heat or cold, but surviving the constant transition between the two. On the Moon, stability does not exist naturally. It must be artificially created, constantly monitored, and precisely controlled. And any disruption to that balance, no matter how small, can have serious consequences. Unexplained structures. Over the years, images captured of the Moon's surface have revealed formations that spark curiosity and debate. Some appear geometric with straight lines, sharp angles, or symmetrical patterns that seem to stand out from the natural landscape. Others create unusual shadows, shifting their appearance depending on the angle of sunlight, sometimes resembling structures or formations that feel almost intentional. Most scientists attribute these appearances to natural geological processes, impact events, fractures, erosion, and the complex way light interacts with uneven terrain. However, not every image is immediately easy to interpret. Certain formations continue to generate discussion and deeper analysis, both within scientific communities and among the public. These discussions often explore multiple perspectives, from well-established geological explanations to more speculative ideas. It is important to emphasize that no verified evidence supports the existence of artificial structures on the Moon. All confirmed findings point toward natural origins shaped over billions of years. Yet the persistence of these visual anomalies reveals something important about human perception. We are naturally driven to seek patterns, to find meaning, to interpret shapes, even in randomness. And when something appears unusual, when it doesn't fit immediately into what we expect, curiosity grows stronger. The Moon continues to present images that challenge our understanding, not because they defy science, but because they remind us that our interpretation is still evolving. And sometimes, what we see says as much about us as it does about the Moon itself. The silence that affects the mind. The Moon presents not only physical challenges, but also deep psychological ones, challenges that are less visible but just as powerful. On Earth, we are constantly surrounded by sensory input, sound, movement, atmosphere, life. There is always something happening, something grounding us in reality. On the Moon, that sensory environment disappears completely. There is no atmosphere, no wind, no natural sound, no background noise to soften the silence. The result is a level of silence that is not just quiet but absolute, total, almost unnatural. For astronauts, this creates an experience unlike anything on Earth, something that cannot be fully anticipated. Even inside a spacecraft or suit where mechanical sounds exist, there are moments where the awareness of external silence becomes overwhelming, almost tangible. Combined with communication delays and periods of isolation, especially on the far side, this silence reinforces a powerful sense of distance, not just physically, but emotionally. The awareness of being far from Earth, suspended in an empty and hostile environment, can deeply affect perception, focus, and emotional state in ways that build gradually over time. Astronauts undergo extensive training to prepare for these conditions, including isolation simulations and psychological conditioning, but no simulation can fully replicate the reality of being there, where the stakes are real and the distance is undeniable. In such an environment, thoughts can become amplified, small concerns can grow. Time can feel distorted, slower in some moments, faster in others. Silence leaves space, and the mind fills it. Maintaining focus, emotional balance, and clear decision-making becomes essential, not just for success, but for safety. Because in extreme isolation, The mind doesn't just observe the environment, it becomes part of the challenge itself, shaping how that environment is experienced. And sometimes, the greatest test is not surviving the moon, but maintaining control within your own thoughts when there is nothing else to ground you. No quick return. A mission to the moon introduces a level of distance and isolation that fundamentally changes how emergencies are handled. In low Earth orbit, astronauts have the option of returning relatively quickly if necessary. On a lunar mission, that is no longer possible. Travel between the moon and Earth takes several days, meaning that any issue must be handled using only the resources available on board. There is no immediate rescue, no instant support, no rapid evacuation. Every problem must be faced directly and solved in place. Astronauts must rely entirely on their training, their systems, and each other. This requires not only technical skill, but also trust, coordination, and resilience under pressure. Even small issues, a minor system failure, a slight miscalculation, a delayed response, can escalate into serious situations when help is so far away. For the crew of the Artemis II mission, this reality adds a constant layer of pressure. Every decision carries weight, every action matters. Because in an environment where help is days away, self-reliance is not optional, it is essential. The moon is not just distant in space, it is distant in terms of safety, response time, and support. And that distance changes everything about how humans must think, act, and survive. In the end, the moon is far more than just a distant light in the sky. It is a world of profound mysteries that continue to challenge everything we think we know. Each mission brings us closer to answers, yet uncovers even deeper questions. And perhaps the greatest secret of all is how much still waits to be discovered. The world is full of hidden stories, and here at Paint Facts, we reveal the most impressive ones. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the next fact might just surprise you.